Welcome to Nighttime Narratives, a place where we help you relax and prepare your brain for sleep. Before we go, close your eyes and imagine yourself floating on a calm sea with the sounds of the waves. We are processing tonight. The story follows Kalen, a young boy who feels a deep connection to the stars and unknown worlds. One night, he follows a mysterious light that leads him to a realm between worlds. There, a figure reveals that Kalen is chosen to fight against an ancient darkness called the Veil Shroud, which threatens to destroy all realms. Kalen must decide whether to embrace his newfound power and destiny to save or doom the worlds. Make sure you're comfortable so we can get started. Beneath an endless sky painted in hues of violet and rose, a lone figure stood on the edge of a quiet ridge. The world around him was still, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Soft clouds curled around distant mountains, their peaks barely visible through the mist. Yet, above it all, the heavens shimmered, an endless sea of stars, stretching beyond the limits of sight. The boy, no older than 16, gazed upwards, his heart heavy with questions no one else seemed to ask. His name was Kalen, and for as long as he could remember, he had felt a pull toward the sky, a whisper in the wind that spoke of something more, something just beyond the horizon. Tonight, the whisper was louder. He took a step forward, the soft crunch of gravel beneath his boots breaking the silence. His breath hung in the cool night air, but it wasn't the chill that sent a shiver down his spine. Something was coming, he could feel it. A change, as certain as the stars above. Kalen's hands tightened into fists at his sides. For years, he had wandered these hills, searching for answers no one else seemed to need. But what was he really looking for? A sign? A purpose? Or something that had been calling him from the day he was born? The wind shifted, carrying a faint, melodic hum, a sound too perfect, too strange to be anything of this world. His pulse quickened as he turned his gaze toward the far horizon. There, beyond the hills and valleys he knew, something glowed faintly. A soft, otherworldly light. Without a second thought, Kalen started walking toward it. Kalen moved carefully down the ridge, each step taking him farther from the familiar paths of his village. The wind stirred his dark hair as he descended, the strange light ahead pulsing softly, like a heartbeat calling him forward. For years, he had heard stories of the veil, the thin boundary between his world and the unknown. Elders warned that those who crossed it never returned, lost to realms beyond imagination. But Kalen had never feared the unknown. If anything, he felt drawn to it, as though a part of him belonged somewhere else, somewhere far beyond the stars. The light grew brighter as he walked, illuminating the jagged edges of the valley below. It shimmered with hues of silver and lavender, flickering like a distant flame. His heart pounded harder. Whatever it was real, and it was waiting. A sudden gust of wind swept past him, and with it came a voice, a soft, echoing murmur that barely touched his ears. He froze, every nerve in his body on edge. Kalen. His name. Spoken as if by the wind itself. "Who's there?" he called, his voice swallowed by the vastness around him. No answer came. Only the hum, rising and falling like a distant melody. Yet deep in his chest, he felt a strange warmth, as though the light ahead knew him, had always known him. He pressed on. The valley stretched before him, quiet and untouched. The light hovered just beyond the edge of a narrow path, floating above a smooth stone unlike anything he had ever seen. It was polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflecting the stars in ripples of color. Kalen knelt beside it, his fingers trembling as he reached out to touch the stone's surface. The moment his skin brushed against it, a spark flared, brilliant and warm, and the world around him seemed to blur. A surge of energy rushed through him, filling his veins with light. His vision swam, and for a heartbeat, he was somewhere else, a place where the stars burned brighter, where distant worlds drifted like islands across a sea of gold. And then, silence. When his vision cleared, the stone beneath his hand was no longer cold. It pulsed softly, and within it, he glimpsed something impossible, a map of stars, unlike any sky he had ever known. "What is this?" he whispered. The voice returned, clear this time, no longer just a whisper. "The path has found you, Kalen. Will you follow it?" His breath caught. Every part of him ached for answers, answers no one else could give. Whatever lay beyond this point, it was no longer a question of fear. It was destiny. "I will," he said softly, and as the words left his lips, the light swelled, pulling him into a journey far greater than he had ever imagined. The light wrapped around Kalen, warm and weightless, as if the stars themselves had reached down to carry him. For a breathless moment, the world dissolved, the ground beneath his feet vanished, the wind stilled, and the sky faded into an endless expanse of shimmering light. When the glow faded, Kalen found himself standing in a place that defied reason. The air was softer here, heavy with a sweet, unfamiliar fragrance. Overhead, the stars hung lower, brighter, as though he could reach up and touch them. Strange, silver-tinted grass swayed at his feet, and far in the distance, towering crystal spires pierced the sky. A soft hum echoed around him, the same melody that had called him here. He wasn't alone. At the edge of the meadow, a figure stood, wrapped in a cloak the color of midnight. Their face was hidden beneath a silver hood, but their presence was undeniable, an aura of quiet power rippled around them. Kalen hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. "You have come," the figure said, their voice smooth and distant, as though it had traveled 1,000 years to reach him. "Where am I?" Kalen asked, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "You stand at the threshold, between the world you know and the realms beyond. Few find their way here, but the light chose you." The light. Kalen glanced back at the shimmering stone, still pulsing softly in the grass. "Why me? I'm no one special." The figure tilted their head slightly. "And yet, here you stand." A flick of their hand, and the air shimmered again. Before Kalen's eyes, a constellation formed, bright lines connecting distant stars. It wasn't just a map, it was a path. The stars have been waiting, the figure continued. A great imbalance has awakened. And you, Kalen, are bound to it. The choice you made to follow the light was no accident. You are part of a story far older than your world. Kalen's mind swirled with questions. He had dreamed of finding something beyond his village, of breaking free from a life too small for his restless heart, but this was more than he could have imagined. "What happens if I follow the path?" he asked. The figure stepped closer, their voice soft but heavy with meaning. "If you walk this path, you will find the truth of who you are. But know this, once you begin, there is no turning back." Kalen exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. For years, he had felt as though he didn't belong. Now, for the first time, he felt right, as if the stars themselves had opened a door meant only for him. "I'll do it," he said, his heart steady. "I'll follow the path." The figure extended their hand. "Then step forward and let the stars guide you." Kalen grasped their hand, and the world shifted again. The path had begun. As Kalen took his first step into the unknown, he had no way of knowing how much his journey would change him or how far from home it would carry him. The air grew warmer as Kalen followed the mysterious figure along the shimmering path. Each step felt both weightless and heavy, like walking in a dream where the ground itself pulsed with quiet power. The sky above shimmered with unfamiliar constellations, forming patterns he had never seen before. The figure walked in silence, their silver cloak brushing against the grass that glowed faintly beneath their feet. Though Kalen's heart raced with questions, he held them back, sensing that the answers would come in their own time. At last, they arrived at the edge of a vast, glassy lake. The water reflected the stars overhead, but as Kalen peered closer, he realized the reflections were not the stars above. These stars moved differently, swirling as though they were alive. The figure turned to face him, their hoods still concealing their face. "This is the mirror of worlds," they said quietly. "It reveals the paths that lie before you and the truths you must face." Kalen swallowed hard. "What am I supposed to see?" The figure raised a hand, and the water stirred. Ripples spread across the surface, and an image began to form, a city of silver towers rising beneath a twilight sky. At first, the sight filled Kalen with wonder, but as the vision sharpened, he saw the truth beneath the beauty. The city was broken. Dark cracks spread through the towers like poison, and a heavy shadow coiled above it, a shape that seemed to breathe and pulse with an eerie life of its own. "What is that?" Kalen whispered. "The veil shroud," the figure said. "A force that should not exist in any world. It is spreading across the realms, consuming light, memory, and life itself. And unless it is stopped, it will reach your world, too." A chill ran down Kalen's spine. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because the light chose you," the figure replied. "Within you lies the last spark of an ancient power, a power that can either banish the darkness or feed it." Kalen tore his gaze away from the mirror, his breath quickening. "I don't understand. I'm no hero, I'm just me." The figure's voice softened. "Every journey begins with uncertainty. But the path has already opened. You are bound to it, whether you accept it or not." Kalen's mind spun with the weight of their words. Yet beneath his confusion, a spark of something else stirred, an ember of courage he had never known he possessed. "What do I have to do?" he asked. The figure extended their hand once more. "Step beyond the mirror. And whatever you do, do not let the shadow touch your heart." Kalen hesitated only a moment before taking their hand. As their fingers touched, the surface of the lake rippled again, then broke apart into a swirl of silver light. The world tilted, and Kalen felt himself falling, not down, but forward, into something vast and unknown. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer by the lake. He stood in the heart of the broken city. The air was thick and heavy, humming with a strange energy. Cracks spread across the ground beneath his feet, glowing faintly at the edges, as though the world itself was coming undone. Kalen took a slow breath, steadying himself. He had made his choice. There was no turning back now. From the shadows, something stirred. A cold wind swept through the broken city, carrying whispers Kalen couldn't quite understand. The air felt heavier with every breath he took, yet something deep within him pushed him forward. He stepped carefully across the cracked ground, his ears straining for any sound beyond the distant hum of unseen energy. The city, though broken, still held traces of its former beauty. Shattered silver towers reached toward the star-speckled sky, their jagged edges gleaming faintly. Strange, luminescent vines crept up the ruins, pulsing softly as though the city itself still fought against the shadow's grip. Kalen's footsteps echoed softly as he moved through an archway half swallowed by creeping darkness. He felt it before he saw it, a chill deeper than mere cold. The shadow was close. And then, from the heart of the ruins, something emerged. A figure, draped in black mist, hovered above the cracked stones. Its face was obscured by a jagged mask, and where its eyes should have been, 2 pinpricks of violet light burned. Kalen's heart pounded in his chest. This was no ordinary threat, this was a manifestation of the veiled shroud itself. So, the shadowed figure spoke, its voice both distant and sharp, the light sends a child. Kalen clenched his fists. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, though his voice trembled slightly. A low, cold laugh echoed through the air. "Brave words," the shadow said, "but words cannot stop what has already begun." As it raised its hand, the air around Kalen grew heavier. Tendrils of shadow crept toward him, and for a moment, fear threatened to seize his heart. But then, a warmth stirred within his chest. A light. The spark the silver-cloaked figure had spoken of. Kalen closed his eyes and focused on the warmth, willing it to rise. The shadows trembled, as if sensing the power within him. When he opened his eyes again, his hands glowed softly, a golden light radiating from his palms. The shadow recoiled. "You are not ready," it hissed, its form beginning to dissolve into mist. "But soon you will face the truth." With those final words, the figure vanished, leaving only the chill behind. Kalen stood there, heart racing, his hands still glowing faintly. Whatever this power was, it had answered when he needed it. But he knew the shadow's words were not idle threats. He had to move forward. Guided by the pulse of light within, Kalen pressed deeper into the city. The air grew warmer again, and soon he arrived at what must have once been a grand plaza. In its center stood a pedestal of smooth, pale stone. Upon it rested a crystal, pale blue, shimmering faintly like a captured star. As he stepped closer, the warmth in his chest surged. This was no ordinary artifact. The heart of Lamira, a familiar voice spoke. Kalen turned to see the silver-cloaked figure standing at the edge of the plaza. "What is it?" he asked softly. "A fragment of the first light," they said. "With it, you may see the cracks in the veil, but it will test your spirit." Kalen swallowed hard. He knew there was no other path. With steady hands, he reached for the crystal. As his fingers brushed its surface, a brilliant light erupted, swallowing the ruins in a wave of radiance. The journey had only just begun. When the light faded, Kalen found himself standing somewhere else. The broken city was gone. Instead, he stood on an endless plain beneath a sky of swirling stars, brighter and closer than he had ever seen before. A soft wind stirred the grass around his feet, carrying a scent that was both sweet and unfamiliar. In his palm, the heart of Lamira pulsed gently, as if it had awakened something beyond his understanding. "You have crossed the threshold," the silver-cloaked figure said, stepping forward from the shimmering air. "This is the between, a realm that touches both light and shadow. Few walk here without being changed." Kalen felt the truth of their words deep in his bones. Something inside him was shifting, an energy that hummed beneath his skin, restless and waiting. "Why did the shadow call me a child of the light?" he asked. The figure tilted their head. "Because you carry within you a spark of the first light, the power that existed before the worlds were formed. Long ago, the veil was created to separate the realms of light and shadow, but now that barrier is weakening. And the shadow you faced is only a fragment of what waits beyond." Kaylin's fingers curled around the crystal. "What happens if the veil breaks?" The wind grew colder. "The shadow will consume everything," they said quietly. "And the light will fade." A chill ran down his spine, but beneath the fear was a growing resolve. "Then tell me how to stop it." The silver-cloaked figure extended their hand. "If you are willing to walk this path, you must seek the guardians of the first light. Only with their aid can the veil be restored." Kaylin took a deep breath and stepped forward, placing his hand in theirs. The moment their fingers touched, the air around them shimmered again, and the world shifted once more. He stood at the edge of a vast forest, its towering trees wrapped in strands of silver light. Somewhere within lay the first of the guardians. The heart of Lumeric glowed faintly in his hand, guiding him forward. The forest was alive with sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of unseen creatures. Yet beneath it all, Kaylin sensed something else, a quiet, persistent pulse, as if the very ground beneath his feet remembered an ancient power. Hours passed as he moved deeper into the woods, the light in his hand growing warmer with every step. Just when fatigue began to weigh heavy on his limbs, a glimmer of gold caught his eye. In a small clearing, beneath the roots of an enormous tree, a pool of golden water shimmered softly. A figure knelt beside it, their form wreathed in faint light. Their hair, like spun gold, cascaded down their back, and when they lifted their gaze to Kaylin, their emerald eyes seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. "You have come," the figure said softly. "The one who carries the light." Kaylin hesitated. "Are you one of the guardians?" A gentle smile touched their lips. "I am Elra, keeper of the dawn. And you, child of the light, have arrived at the edge of destiny." He stepped closer, the heart of Lumeric glowing brighter as he approached. "The veil is breaking. I've come to ask for your help." Elra stood, the light around her flickering softly. "To mend the veil is no small task," she said. "And the shadow grows stronger with every passing moment. But I will aid you if you can pass the trial of light." Kaylin's heart pounded. "What must I do?" Elra extended a hand, and from the pool of golden water, a slender blade of light rose, hovering in the air between them. "You must face the shadow within yourself. Only then will you be worthy of the first light's power." The blade trembled as he reached for it, warmth spreading through his fingertips. As soon as his hand closed around the hilt, the world around him dissolved into light. He stood alone in the heart of darkness. A voice, his own, yet twisted and cold, echoed from the void. "You cannot stop it," it whispered. "You are not strong enough." Kaylin swallowed hard, gripping the blade tighter. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, though fear clawed at the edges of his resolve. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, an exact mirror of himself, but its eyes burned with violet light. It raised a blade of its own, and without warning, struck. Their blades clashed, sparks of light and shadow scattering in every direction. Each strike felt like a battle against his own doubts and fears, the worry that he was too small, too weak, too late to make a difference. But with every blow he parried, the warmth of the heart of Lumeric burned brighter in his chest. "You are not enough," the shadow hissed, but its voice trembled. "I am more than you think," Kalen said firmly, driving his blade forward. Light flared around him, piercing through the shadow's form. With a final, shattering cry, the darkness dissolved, and Kalen stood alone once more. When the light faded, Elora stood before him, her smile warmer now. "You have faced your darkness and did not fall. You are worthy of the first light's blessing." She touched the blade in his hands, and it transformed into a slender, golden key. "This will open the Key of Stars," Elora said. "Beyond it lies the path to the next guardian. But beware, the deeper you walk, the closer the shadow will follow." Kalen nodded, his heart steady. He was no longer afraid. With the key in his hand and the light in his heart, he turned toward the forest's edge. The journey was far from over, but he would not walk it alone. Kalen moved through the forest with renewed purpose, the golden key warm in his palm. Each step forward seemed to draw him closer to something unseen, an ancient power that stirred beneath the earth. The silver light woven through the branches above dimmed as the path narrowed, the air thick with a quiet, expectant energy. He reached a break in the trees where the ground sloped upward, revealing a ridge bathed in pale starlight. At the summit, an arch of stone stood, a gate carved with symbols that pulsed faintly as he approached. The Key of Stars. Kalen held the golden key before him. It vibrated softly in his grip, as if eager to fulfill its purpose. With a deep breath, he pressed the key into a hollow at the gate's center. The air trembled. A soft chime echoed through the night as the gate flared to life, lines of radiant gold spreading across its surface. With a low, resonant hum, the stone parted, revealing a corridor of shimmering starlight stretching beyond. Kalen stepped through. The world shifted around him. He emerged into a sky filled with constellations, bright, living patterns that seemed to pulse with ancient wisdom. A bridge of light extended before him, floating over an endless expanse of silver mist. Far ahead, a tower rose, its spire reaching toward the stars themselves. The celestial spire. Elora's words echoed in his mind, "Beyond the gate lies the path to the next guardian." As he moved along the bridge, the stars overhead shifted, forming images, warriors wielding blades of light, a serpent coiling around a broken world, and a figure cloaked in shadow reaching toward the heart of the sky. Kalen's heart pounded faster. Was this the story of the first light? And if so, where did he fit within it? A faint whisper drifted through the air. It wasn't in any language he knew, yet somehow he understood. "You walk between light and shadow, but which will you become?" He clenched his fists. "I'll never choose the shadow," he whispered. The bridge trembled beneath his feet as he neared the spire's entrance, two towering doors carved with celestial runes. As he raised his hand, the heart of Lumira pulsed once, and the doors swung open silently. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the soft hum of unseen energy. A spiral staircase wound upward, glowing faintly beneath his steps. As Kalen ascended, his thoughts swirled. How many guardians remained? And would their power be enough to mend the veil before the shadow broke free entirely? At the top of the stairs, a circular chamber stretched wide beneath a crystal dome. Stars glittered above, but it was the figure at the center that held his gaze. A man stood tall and proud, his hair silver as moonlight, his armor edged with patterns of stars. His eyes, a deep and endless blue, fixed on Kalen with quiet intensity. "You carry the light," the man said, his voice low and steady. "And yet, you are untested." Kalen straightened his shoulders. I faced the shadow within myself. I'm ready for whatever comes next. The guardian nodded, though his expression remained unreadable. I am Sarion, keeper of the stars. And if you seek my aid, you must prove your heart's clarity in the trial of truth. Kaelin swallowed hard. What do I have to do? Sarion raised a hand, and the air shimmered. From the light, a mirror formed, its surface smooth and radiant. Look into the mirror, Sarion instructed, and face the truth hidden within you. Only one who accepts every part of themselves, light and shadow, may wield the power to mend the veil. Kaelin stepped forward, his reflection shifting in the glass. At first, he saw only himself, worn boots, tousled hair, and the determination in his eyes. But then, the image rippled, and he saw a different version of himself. This reflection stood taller, stronger, but his eyes glowed violet, and shadow clung to his every movement. It was the version of him that had faced him during Elra's trial. You think you're different from me, the shadow of reflection said softly. But we are the same. Every doubt you bury, every fear you hide, I am born from it. Kaelin's pulse quickened. I'm not like you, he said. The shadow tilted its head. Aren't you? You carry the light, but you also carry the fear of failing, of being too weak to stop what's coming. What happens if the light isn't enough? Kaelin's breath hitched. Deep down, he did fear that. But I'm more than my fears, he said, voice steadier now. I've faced them, and I'm still standing. The shadow of reflection smiled faintly. We'll see. The mirror fractured, and Kaelin stumbled back as the pieces dissolved into starlight. Sirion's expression softened slightly. You faced the truth and did not break. Few have the courage to accept their own darkness. He extended a hand. In his palm lay a silver pendant shaped like a star. Take this. It is a shard of the first light. With it, you may call upon the stars themselves when the shadow rises. Kaelin accepted the pendant, its cool weight settling against his chest. Two guardians had now entrusted him with their power, but the journey was far from over. The next guardian awaits beyond the Valley of Echoes, Sarion said. But be warned, the shadow's reach grows stronger there. Kaelin nodded, heart steady. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, because the light was worth protecting. And he would not fail. Kaelin turned and made his way back toward the bridge, the pendant resting against his chest, a constant reminder of the responsibility he carried. The stars above twinkled in silent acknowledgement, as if watching his every move, guiding him onward. As he stepped onto the bridge again, the mist beneath seemed to swirl, shifting in a slow, deliberate dance. The path ahead felt both familiar and foreign, as though the very fabric of this place was changing with each step he took. The Tower of Stars loomed behind him, its spire now a distant silhouette against the vast expanse of constellations. Kaelin glanced at the silver pendant in his hand, its surface catching the light of the stars. The words Sarion had spoken echoed in his mind, the shadow's reach grows stronger. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for him in the Valley of Echoes, a trial, a test far greater than any he had yet faced. As the bridge stretched out before him, the silver mist thickened, and faint sounds, whispers, began to rise from the depths. They were words at first, just an eerie chorus of murmurs, like the voices of the lost. But as Kaylin pressed on, the whispers grew clearer. "You are not ready." The voice was cold, distant, but unmistakable. Kaylin froze for a moment, his heart pounding. He spun around, but the bridge was empty, only the shimmering stars above and the endless mist below. The whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, each voice carrying a weight of doubt and fear, like 1,000 lost souls crying out in anguish. "You cannot carry both the light and the shadow," another voice whispered. "They will tear you apart." Kaylin clenched his fists. The doubts, the fears, the shadow that lingered in the corners of his mind, they had always been there, but now they threatened to consume him. He could feel them pulling at him, trying to unravel the resolve he had built. But he wasn't going to let them win. Not now. Not after everything he had already faced. "I am ready," he muttered to himself, his voice steady. "I will protect the light." And then, as if responding to his defiance, the mist around him seemed to shift. The air grew colder, and the whispers ceased, replaced by a deep, resonant hum, like a distant drumbeat echoing through the very bones of the world. The bridge began to tremble beneath him, its once smooth surface now rippling with an unseen force. Suddenly, a shadow emerged from the mist ahead, a figure, dark and twisted, its shape shifting like liquid night. Its eyes glowed with a fierce, violet light, and it stared at Kaylin with an intensity that froze him in place. "Do you truly believe you can stand against me?" the figure hissed, its voice a venomous blend of rage and mockery. "You are nothing more than a pawn in a game you cannot comprehend." Kaylin's heart raced, but he held his ground. The pendant at his chest pulsed, a steady thrum of light and warmth. He felt the power of the first light within him, as well as the echo of Syrian's words, "You are untested." But Kaylin had been tested. By the trial in the mirror, by the shadow within him, by every step of this journey. He wasn't the same person who had walked through the gate of stars. He had changed. And he wasn't about to back down now. "I'm no pawn," Kaylin said, his voice firm, unyielding. "I choose to protect the light. And I'll fight for it." The shadow figure laughed, a hollow, mocking sound that echoed in the stillness of the mist. "Very well," it sneered. "Let's see if you can live up to your words." With a sudden, violent surge, the shadow lunged at him, a black whirlwind of darkness and fury. But Kaylin stood tall, the pendant glowing brighter in his hand, its light cutting through the shadow like a blade. The mist parted in a burst of starlight as the shadow recoiled, hissing in pain. "You are stronger than I expected," the shadow growled, its form flickering with anger. "But even the brightest light cannot banish all darkness. The shadow will always return." "We'll see about that," Kaylin replied, stepping forward. The shadow lunged again, but this time Kaylin was ready. He raised the pendant high, calling upon the power of the first light, channeling the energy through every fiber of his being. The stars above seemed to respond, their light intensifying, swirling in a brilliant vortex that consumed the shadow in its pure, radiant glow. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Then, with a final, defiant cry, the shadow disintegrated into nothingness, leaving only the soft, fading glow of the stars in its wake. Kaylin stood there, breathing heavily, his heart still racing. The mist had cleared, and the bridge was calm once more. But something had changed. The air felt different, charged with a new energy, a deeper power. He had faced the shadow. And for now, he had overcome it. But the journey was far from over. The Valley of Echoes awaited, and Kaylin knew the challenges ahead would be greater still. The shadow may have been vanquished for now, but he could feel its lingering presence, waiting to strike again. But Kalen wasn't afraid. He had the light, and he would carry it, no matter the cost. With renewed determination, he stepped forward, the stars above him guiding the way. Kalen continued across the bridge of light, his steps now lighter, as though the weight of old burdens had eased. The shadow had vanished, but it didn't grant him complete peace. Though it was defeated, it was not destroyed. The awareness of its presence lingered, following him like a shadow that would not leave. The waves of triumph over his victory were now tempered by the inner fear that had yet to fade. He knew he could not escape the darkness within him, but now he refused to let that darkness control him. The bridge led onward, toward the valley that stretched below him, the Valley of Echoes. Its edges were bathed in a pale glow, but the atmosphere was heavier, saturated with silences that felt like distant whispers of bygone ages. Kalen knew he had to remain cautious. To succeed now, he would have to delve deep into the very core of everything he knew, for only then could he withstand whatever came next. At the end of the bridge, the earth opened up into a chasm, creating an immense valley that felt like the very abyss of time itself. Its edges were bathed in a faint, otherworldly light, but the air was thick with a haunting stillness, as if the echoes of past battles, grief, and shattered dreams filled the space. Kalen knew that he would have to tread carefully, for the very essence of this place seemed to pulse with an ancient power that could not be ignored. "Welcome, Kalen," a voice spoke, breaking the silence. Kalen stopped, his senses sharpening as he instinctively reached for the pendant resting against his chest. The words were spoken with an unsettling calm, reverberating in the vast emptiness around him. The voice carried a weight, as if it had existed before time itself, echoing through the very fabric of the valley. He turned toward the source of the voice, and before him materialized a figure cloaked in swirling shadows. The figure stood tall, its features hidden, but its eyes burned with a violet light that pierced through the gloom. The figure's presence felt both ancient and ominous, like the very embodiment of the valley itself. "You have come far, Kalen," the figure continued, its voice like a rumble in the air. "But this is where your true trial begins." Kalen's hand tightened around the pendant, his resolve unwavering. "I will face whatever trial awaits. I will protect the light." The shadowed figure chuckled softly, its voice low and mocking. "The light is a fragile thing, Kalen. Can you truly wield it? Do you even understand the cost of what you seek to protect?" Kalen's pulse quickened, but he stood tall, refusing to let doubt take root. "I've seen the darkness within me. I've accepted it, and I will not let it destroy what I've sworn to protect." The figure stepped closer, its form shifting like smoke. "You may have faced your inner shadow, But the shadow that grows in this world is not so easily overcome. The Valley of Echoes is where all things, past, present, and future, converge. What you face here is not just an enemy, but a reflection of everything you have ever been. Kaylin frowned. Then show me what you are. I will not turn away. The shadowed figure raised a hand, and the ground beneath Kaylin's feet began to tremble. The air grew thick with an oppressive force, and before Kaylin, the valley twisted and reshaped itself. The very earth seemed to collapse into fragments, leaving Kaylin suspended in a realm of darkness, the stars above dimmed by an endless void. A mirror appeared before him, its surface rippling like water disturbed by an unseen hand. In its reflection, Kaylin saw himself, but not as he was now. The image was distorted, darker, more filled with doubt and regret. His eyes glowed violet, his face twisted with anger, and the shadows around him seemed to coil like serpents, as if ready to consume him whole. You see, Kaylin, the voice echoed, this is who you were, who you still are, deep down. The darkness is part of you, and it will never truly leave. Kaylin's heart pounded in his chest. But as he stared into the reflection, something stirred within him. The fear, the doubts, the old scars, they were part of his past, yes. But they no longer defined him. No, he whispered, shaking his head. I've chosen to move beyond this. The shadowed figure laughed, but the sound was less confident now. Very well, Kaylin. You've made your choice. But the path ahead will be harder than you know. The mirror shattered, and the valley around him began to collapse. But Kaylin stood firm, the light of the first light growing brighter within him, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. I've chosen my path, he said, his voice steady, unwavering. I will face the darkness, but I will do it with the light. As the valley crumbled away, Kaylin stepped forward into the unknown, his heart steady with the knowledge that no matter the trials ahead, he would face them with the light he carried. And as he walked, the stars above him flared with renewed brilliance, a promise that no shadow, no matter how deep, could ever extinguish the light within him. The journey was far from over, but Kaylin was ready. And with each step, the world would shift. Friends, this is the end of another story of ours. I hope you liked it. And as always, with the sound of relaxing music, we will continue to keep our eyes closed and drift into a light sleep.